Hey guys, welcome back to the kitchen remodel. So, if you remember correctly, this is kind of where we left off. I had all the cabinets in, I had the face frames on, and whatnot. Next up was the drawers and pullouts and all that stuff. Well, I tried a new hardwood dealer, so I only picked up enough maple to do those two bigger pan drawers down there towards the bottom. All normal milling stuff here, flatten the face at the joiner, square up an edge, etc. I just didn't have a whole lot of comfort with the new hardwood dealer just yet, and plus these boards were extra wide, so I left everything way oversized. I think my initial milling, I only took this down to around 3/4 of an inch thick, but I'm happy to say everything actually turned out really well. And I did go ahead and sticker and stack this stuff way oversized, and I let it sit for probably a day and a half before coming back, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that everything was in really good shape. There was very little joining that needed to be done. I did run one or two boards through the joiner again, but for the most part this material was very stable and I was quite happy with it. Now, because I am expecting quite a bit of weight in these drawers, I went ahead and put the dado stack in the saw to set up for a 1/2 inch dado in the bottom to accept a 1/2 inch panel for the bottoms in these drawers. I should also mention I'm using Blum undermount glides on this, so I brought the final thickness of this material down to 5/8 of an inch. Now, admittedly, I wasn't exactly unhappy when my wife wasn't too thrilled about having dovetails for these drawers, as it gave me a perfect excuse to use my new Laguna drill press. That auto start feature is the bomb on this drill press. I really like that. So the construction is going to be glue and screws, and then I will come back and I will plug those holes with some matching Babinga plugs. But we'll cut those here in just a little bit. Now, normally I would just raise the blade and cut these backs off, but in this case with the dado stack in there and not wanting to mess with my fence setting, I went ahead and trimmed these at the bandsaw, and then I took them over to the bench and just hand planed them a little bit with a smoother to clean things up. I was able to get pretty close with the bandsaw, so it really did not take a lot of work with the smoothing plane to get these cleaned up. I have a very light setting set on this particular smoothing plane. So next up was getting the bottoms in these. In these bigger drawers, I used 1/2 inch bottom material just because I'm expecting there to be a great deal of weight in them. And then I also secured these with more screws than I normally would for a general bottom. But I think I went with 3 or 4 screws in these drawers. Now, I've said many times in many videos that you really don't need the fancy jigs to install the Blum hardware. I'm going to speed this up a bit, but you can use the hardware itself as the template for both drilling the hole in the back as well as identifying the screws for the clips underneath the drawers. And the last thing to do to these drawers is to go ahead and cut the plugs to cover up those screw holes. I set it up at the drill press to cut the plugs themselves, and then I just move over to the bandsaw to go ahead and release them from the original block. And from there was just a matter of putting the plugs in and getting these drawers installed. So next I wanted to turn my attention to the left side of the refrigerator. This is kind of like a big closet, and I decided to use the pre-finished ply on this side, thinking that it would just make things a little faster, and frankly it really didn't. This plywood was just horrible. I went ahead and cut the 2 strips to size, clamped them together, and then started routing all my dados and rabbits all at the same time. I will turn around and cut the back rabbit for the back panel. I will do that at the table saw in just a minute. But this is just getting all of the rabbits and the dados cut. And here I'm using the Festool system to go ahead and drill the holes for the shelf pins. And I'll drill them all on both sides before moving over and cutting the rabbits in the backs of these to accept the back panel. So I wanted to use these shelf pin sleeves in this project just because I think they look better and I think that they hold up better over time. It's a fairly simple install. You just have to drill the hole just a little bit bigger than you normally would and go ahead and tap them in. And of course the shelves themselves, they'll need a little bit of this decorative trim. So I'll go ahead and do that now before I install this whole cabinet. And here's what that case looks like all installed. No rhyme or reason to the shelf locations yet, but we'll start getting this loaded up and I'm sure that they will move around. So next up I turn my attention back to the other side of the refrigerator and working on those big pullouts for there. I started with 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood and went ahead and glued all of the edging on first before moving over to the table saw to cut all of the dados and rabbits to assemble these. These will also have adjustable shelves and I did these a little bit different, but I'll show you that in just a second. And after a quick dry fit to make sure everything was going together nicely, I went ahead and glued everything up. Everything came together really nice. Again, just held together with glue and screws because none of it is going to be visible in the final product. So I had fully intended to use the Festool system to cut the shelf pin holes in these big pullouts before I did the glue up, and quite frankly I just completely forgot. So I still used the Festool system to just create a jig to go in and do these manually, but you don't have to have the Festool system for this. You could just as easily do it at the drill press, laying out your pattern that you want. And from there it was just a matter of securing the jig inside the case and drilling the holes. I did use a stop collar here just to make sure that the hole depths were correct for each shelf pin hole. I will also be adding the shelf pin sleeves to these, but I was out of them, so they are on order. I will have to add these at a later time. So all I'm doing here is gluing on these small little strips to keep things from sliding off, as well as extended strips on the upper and the lower. Gives it a little bit more rigidity, as well as it gives me some place to mount the drawer slide. So when I get this out of clamps, I'll sand this up and go see if I can get this one installed. So there it is, all installed. I will pull it out here and let you see the inside of it. As well, I went ahead and built the other 3 as well and got them installed. Please ignore the handles. They are just temporary gate type handles to put in there for now and make this usable since we'll have company through the holidays. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for this one. When we get going in the next one, I'm going to start building all of the drawer fronts and door fronts. Again, using the Bubinga, I've already started to rough mills for some of that stock, as well as I have this beautiful Bubinga 1/4 inch plywood that will be the centers for all of those drawers and doors. So stay tuned for that. That'll be in the next video, and hopefully I get this pantry side all wrapped up in the next video. So until then, guys, take care.